SMMR, also known as SUMMER, stands for Sustainable Urban Mobility in Metropolitan Regions in ASEAN. SUMMER is an ASEAN-German cooperation project with the objective to implement concepts and strategies for integrated and sustainable mobility across the 10 ASEAN member states. Since 2019, SUMMER is developing 4 knowledge products in the form of green papers and webinars, and this covers the following topics: SUMPs, Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans; MTEs, Metropolitan Transport Executives; Smart and Open, which refers to smart and open traffic management; and finally, HUBs, which refers to intermodal interchanges. Since 2019, SUMMER is also supporting 3 metropolitan regions established ready to implement pilot projects. These metropolitan regions include Phnom Penh in Cambodia, Can Tho in Vietnam, and the cross-border region between Vientiane Lao PDR and Nong Khai in Thailand. The SUMMER German Cooperation Project is implemented by GFA Consulting Group together with Clean Air Asia, the Wuppertal Institute, and Ruprecht Consult on behalf of GIZ and the ASEAN Secretariat. For more information, visit us at www.summer.asia or find us on LinkedIn and Facebook.
First up, we will hear about the open data initiatives in the Philippines. So this will be presented to us by Dr. Regin, who is a professor in the Institute of Civil Engineering in the University of the Philippines. Dr. Regidor, or Doc Reg, is also he's a transport engineer and is a research fellow at the National Center for Transportation Studies, where he also served as its director for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. He's engaged in research mainly on environmentally sustainable transport, and he actually led the study team that formulated in the Philippines the National Environmentally Sustainable Transport Strategy. And this was supported by UNCRD. He has also worked as a transport planner for the World Bank, contributing to the formulation of a transport infrastructure framework plan and roadmap for the Philippines. And he's also been involved in the urban level research and planning. Most recently, this was in 2018, he led the formulation of a transport and traffic management plan for the city of Tacloban in the Philippines.
Greetings, everyone. I'm going to present on open data and mobility, the case of the Philippines. I'm Regin Regidor. I'm from the Institute of Civil Engineering and the National Center for Transportation Studies of the University of the Philippines. Here is the outline of my presentation, which includes an inventory of transportation data sources in the Philippines, some examples of good practices, and an assessment, and the conclusion to the presentation. So let me ask some questions first. Why do we collect data? And there are various answers to that question. Among them, of course, would be we collect data because you want to be able to determine certain things like mode share. We like to determine vehicle occupancy. We'd like to estimate fuel economy, vehicle emissions, travel speed. Perhaps for those of us who are into modeling or planning, we want to be able to estimate the vehicle kilometers traveled or the passenger kilometers traveled. And of course, for freight, there's an equivalent in terms of the ton kilometers traveled, perhaps, as well as vehicle kilometers traveled for goods transport. For those who are into road safety, there's also the determination for black spots. And of course, that includes mapping as well. So what are the sources for data on transportation in the Philippines? Well, the primary source of data would be the Department of Transportation. And under the Department of Transportation are several agencies for air, maritime, road, and rail transport. Those agencies include the Land Transportation Office, the Land Transport Franchising and Regulatory Board, the Philippine National Railways, the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, the Maritime Industry Authority, and the Philippine Ports Authority. So these agencies are the ones collecting the various data regarding passenger and freight flow in the Philippines. Another source of data for transport in the Philippines is the Department of Public Works and Highways. And the department publishes an atlas, every year, and in this atlas, they're able to report on the status of roads and bridges in the Philippines. So as far as transport is concerned, they're in charge of highways and streets. Okay, and it is mostly about the infrastructure that they have. No, unlike DOTR, the Department of Transport, which covers all transport modes and services as well. Okay, so motor vehicle registration might be with the DOTR, from the Land Transportation Office, but the volume of traffic, along national roads are usually reported by the Department of Public Works and Highways. Most recently, the department has been very active in encoding, and making available their data on various platforms that are considered to be open data. Okay, among them, of course, would be, as illustrated in the slide, the GIS web apps that they have, that allow for viewers from their platform to be able to determine what data are available with the department. Another source of data, though quite general, would be the Philippine Statistics Authority. And the Philippine Statistics Authority collects various data from the different sectors, okay, and transport among them. And they compile this into what we call the Philippine Statistical Yearbook, which is an annual publication. And the Philippine Statistics Authority is also the one which conducts the national surveys, including the census and expenditure surveys that we also use for transportation, particularly if we want to take into consideration, of course, the socioeconomic aspects and the other inputs that we need to be able to understand travel behavior, as well as the assessment for the need of infrastructure. Um, Quite recently, during this current administration, they established a freedom of information portal. And this is due to the law that was passed a few years ago regarding freedom of information, calling for transparency in the availability of data. So I think as far as the status of open data in the Philippines is concerned, this is one of the major developments. And how does it work? Well, you have to go to the portal, uh, and from the Freedom of Information portal, there are steps to follow in order for you to be able to request the data, that you need for your study, or for your project. So step one is usually to search and try to determine, which department or agency, has the data that you need. Okay, so if it's, let's say for example, driver information, okay, or vehicle registration, then we know that that is under the Department of Transportation, and then we file a report. We file an application. So that application, okay, is submitted through this portal, and we wait for a response. No, that's step two. And then after the response, depending on the response, of course, we go to step three, where you can access, the specific data that you requested. The data has to be very specific, and usually whoever answers from the portal will have follow-up questions from the one requesting the data, in order for them to determine if the specifics of the data being requested. I have here an example of a correspondence that I was able to capture, from the Freedom of Information portal. And this is a request for data on the Metro Manila Urban Transportation Integration Study, which is a comprehensive study that covered Metro Manila and its adjacent areas back in 1999. No? For privacy, I covered, uh, block the names of the parties involved, with respect to this request. And if you can see the correspondence, initially the request was quite general because they were just requesting on data on the Metro Manila Urban Transportation Integration Study, no? Without really mentioning whether the request was for the reports or for the raw or processed data, no, from this project. Uh, so what happened here was that basically the one requesting the data got an approval, okay, but as you can see from the correspondence, that approval also had to go through the Department of Transportation. Okay. So basically what happened was for the portal to be something like a general clearinghouse, no, or a general correspondence between the government and the ones requesting the data. Okay. And you can see here, no, they would ultimately refer you to a link, no, that they obtained from Department of Transportation. Okay, and there's also a follow-up question here if the database is required, no, for by the requesting party. So if it's required, there's an advice, no, regarding how to access this, and that includes filling up another no, submitting another formal request for this database or data set. So I think this is the concluding portion of this correspondence. And you can see here that there are guidelines, no, for requesting certain information from the DOTR. No? And we don't know because after this part of the correspondence, there is no other correspondence mentioned. No? So we don't know if the one requesting the data was able to succeed in getting the data, but there are also information here for the contact persons from the DOTR who would be the ones in charge of the data. So actually what you see here is that the Freedom of Information portal, instead of really facilitating uh, uh, the request, no, to obtain certain data, actually adds another layer, no, to the data access procedure. Well, there are other data sources, and I would say that these are among the good practices that are available to us in our country. And among those data sources would be the Open Knowledge Repository of the World Bank, where you can browse per topic and be able to access the different information, including reports and other data that are available with the bank. No? And these include, of course, various studies conducted for the Philippines, among them for infrastructure development, for logistics, and in the past, no, where the World Bank was the one supporting certain projects such as the bus rapid transit, we were able to collect various data from various surveys that they also make available through this open knowledge repository. There's also the library by the Japan International Cooperation Agency, another searchable source for data. And here you can find various data from various reports on projects conducted with support of the Japanese government from the 1970s until the present. And usually this is referred to, no, as the source for the reports for many researchers on transport, considering that JICA has been one of the more active promoters of transport studies in the Philippines. One last example, perhaps, is Clean Air Asia. I would say that I've been also working with them on various projects before, and they also have their own knowledge base. No? And I just highlight here one of the studies that were conducted before with Clean Air Asia, walkability in Asian cities. This is just an example of one of the projects that are under their knowledge base where people can access the reports as well as the data collected under these projects. So an assessment, very quick assessment, agencies have varying report formats and availability. And there are no common templates, like for example, for railways, no? They have different data formats, templates, and you can't easily relate, no? Each data set with the other. Airports and ports mainly only report total inbound or outbound trips without details that would allow for relating origin destination pairs. And then, of course, most data available at the national level, and it's usually quite difficult to get data at the local level. No? You have to deal with each city or each municipality, and in most cases, these cities and municipalities won't really have the data set that you would need, no, for more detailed analysis or assessments, such as those that we need for transport planning. No? There are varying policies and practices on data collection, processing, reporting, publishing. Of course, we have annual reports. The DPWH Atlas is one of those examples. There's a statistical yearbook published by the PSA, but mostly the data sets are not readily usable in certain cases. No? You would have to do a tremendous amount of data processing. And I think some of my colleagues whom I worked with before would agree with that. No? We do a lot of data processing in order for us to come up with the data set that we could use, no, for our needs, no? Whether it's transport modeling, traffic simulation, or what have you. No? And perhaps, no, I would like to note here that there's also minimal data available on active transport. No? So if you're going to study about walking or cycling in the Philippines, there's very minimal data regarding those. It's mostly data on motorized transport. So to conclude, I think there's still a need to conduct regular and strategic data collection at the national and local levels. Of course, we need to perform analysis of the data concerning trips made facilities such as terminals, airports, and ports. And hopefully we could process these to usable form. There's still a need to standardize that data in terms of the analysis and the reporting. And of course, like what I mentioned earlier, there's a need to address the problem of red tape. Perhaps there should be more clearinghouses, more repositories needed. Perhaps these should be with the Department of Science and Technology, as well as the universities who have their own libraries and their own holdings, no? That would allow for more open data access, no? Accessibility for researchers and perhaps the general public. Thank you and good day to everyone.
Presentation where we will hear about open data initiatives in Jakarta. So this will be presented to us by Mr. Emir Riza, and who serves as the Executive Director of Intelligent Transport System Indonesia. And he's also the head of the Transportation IT Forum of Indonesian Transport Society from 2019 to 2023. So he's an engineer with an MBA in finance and material management, and he serves as the executive committee head of Jakarta Research Council from 2019 to 2022. So Mr. Emir will do a live presentation, and he'll share with us the experiences of Jakarta on open data and in what forms these are. So without further ado, Mr. Emir, the floor is yours.
Hi, how are you? Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Alvin, for cover talk. Asia, thank you for welcome, and Conrad from SMMR, fellow neighbor from Singapore Land and Transport Group, fellow from GIZ, German Corporation, and other fellow from ASEAN. Thank you for before distinguished speakers. Hi all participants in this mobility seminar. My name is Emir Riza. Today I will represent Indonesian Transport Society and share some of the data concepts and activity in Jakarta. Next, please. For many of us, including myself, open data is an interesting concept, but there are too many descriptions, explanation, and studies about this concept and how it should be applied and measured. So I think we should start and hold on to the basic concepts of what is data and what we want to achieve by having this open data. I have two simple slides that can serve as a foundation throughout my presentation for any open data initiative. First of all, everything should lead to action toward a goal, and of course, goal only can be achieved by an actions. In these simple concepts, uh, I think the data is information is not the same as we explore it later. For us, data can be described as a qualitative or quantitative measurement or observations that captured without any interpretations or influence from human or system. Whereas information is the data that already have interpretation on it or have some degree of interpreted either by a machine or by a human. Uh, the number three, knowledge is the capability to read, comprehend, or understand the information and data, then and make it useful in planning and executing an action, whether it's individual action, influencing others, or group actions. Next, please. Now, the open data in transportation in 2021, starting with this year, 2020. Of course, before we have the Transportation Master Plan for Greater Jakarta, it's a presidential decree number 55 to 2011. But because of the pandemic, now the first one is to survive the COVID-19 as we are in throughout the world. And then because of the economic and also the economic recovery, um, specifically in Jakarta, dealing with the surviving the COVID and also economic is a very tough issues. We have many times um, not agreeing with the central government. The Jakarta have another issue, another thinking, another concept about handling the COVID, and then the government have another concept. But and as you all shown, um, it's still going on. Next slide, please. Not focusing on that, but we're trying. I'm trying to focus on Jakarta Open Data timeline. The Jakarta Open Data initiative and concept started with the Public Information Law number 14, 2008. With that, the Jakarta governor at that time, issued a decree number 2014, which followed by the implementation and the collaboration with the Clue apps. These Clue apps I will elaborate later in the slides. And also pursuing the Jakarta Governor Decree, Governor also open and released the data jakarta.id, which is open data forum in 2015. The latest one will be in last year, starting last year, 2019, and operated in 2020 is a Jaki Apps by Smart City of Jakarta. Next, please. This is the Clue application in 2000. 2014 and 2015. Basically, this is one. We can think this is as one of the successful data application in Jakarta in recent years. Basically, it's a form of citizen journalism. What it does is it collects data information through mobile apps, which capture the public service complaints from always public cities, all peoples, and also the recording and capturing the public nuisance reports. These public nuisance report and service complaints, it include the road condition, the road condition, dangerous traffic condition, traffic violations, and other traffic issues in many streets in Jakarta. Although it's also used for cleaning Jakarta public service in cleaning sewer and everything to prevent the flooding. What it does when it collects the data information of public service, then it forward the informations. This is not the data, this is information, because what the Clue application have is the pictures and the text from people. So because it's not machine capture or I2 capture, I say this is already influenced by the reporters. So where the method will be citizen report from mobile apps, and the received data or it is data because for the next agency passed to the responsible agency, and then it is used by another agency to measure the performance of other agencies. The user will be it was the government agency and also the citizens. Now using this application, because like I said, data is not really can be divided as information, and also information would not maybe not is a correct data which require validations. At that time, many false reports, and also like the city official just reporting the same pictures over and over to just to report that they have done their job, whereas we know that they haven't done the jobs. And also it shows that there was a lack of coordinations between agency. For example, when the clue captures there is trouble in some part area, let's say the one of the street, they cannot ask the transportation agency or construction agency to do something about it. So they have to deal with it, which is not their responsibility. Next, please. With that experience, then Jakarta learned that they have to improve from just citizen reporting to have owned CCTV, built and installed a lot of CCTVs and sensors. So the collection method advanced to visual data from CCTVs, measurement from data sensor, also information from people, and then information from government agency, like what you see in the small picture. The government spread the information about government policies and regulations to the citizens through from the government agency directly to the smart city and then goes to the website. So the data that gathers used by city officers and government agency. For examples, when they collect the or capture the rising water level, then directly the responsible water agency should take care of it right away, because like we all know, Jakarta is famous for flooding in many areas, either because of the sewer capacity or the waste that too much for the waterway capacity. And but it's also need improvements, because it then shows that many agency still lack transparency of what they're doing, and this Jakarta Smart City show that it effect on the transportations. For example, there are still many dangerous road conditions, and there also kept find out that the dangerous road conditions, it's because the lack of coordination between uh, the construction agency and also the transportation agency. For example, the transportation agency already said that they want to have the road in this area for like uh, 6 meters wide, but they don't have the budget to construct. The budget is on the road constructions, but on that year, the road construction did not know that the transportation agency already have that road on the project, so they don't have the budget at that time. Of course, then for just for 1.5 year, the road condition cannot be repaired, and that was dangerous. And also the need to capacity and the capacity to analyze data. Smart city people consist of technicians and engineers, which doesn't have the capability of the agency itself. For example, the transportation's expert, it's in the transportation agency. It's not on the Jakarta Smart City. Of course, the Smart City guy can compile a lot of engineering argument, but to get the feel and to capture what is important for the transport, it cannot. Also happen for the in energy sectors and also the constructions, whereas for we call it tata kota, civil planning, of course there are a lot of computer technician, but no civil engineer in smart cities. So it needs smooth workflow between the government agencies. Next, please. Then another initiative is Jaki, provided by the same people in Jakarta Smart City. When they learn that they have they lack the capability of it, then the initiative will be to more expensive use on sharing data to the people. So in here you see Jaki application, which very recent, and it almost include all of the public service in Jakarta. And also in here you can download it from the App Store and iOS Store, where this has amount of massive amount of information about all public service, and also you can interact with the systems. For example, when you apply for a permit, then we can follow through the system whether our permit already in what stage or what level. It has also information where there is a disaster, such as a flood location, and how to avoid and get help. Of course, there is Jakarta Tanggap COVID, which is information about the red zone area and how you can get help and what is the procedure to avoid and to heal yourself if people or you around have a COVID exposures. Next, please. Now, using that application, Jaki Smart City, this is how the experience that we all in Indonesia and especially in Jakarta are very scared of. Every year, in after Ramadan, people goes mudik. So mudik is I don't know what you call it, but millions of people from Jakarta goes back to their village, and then 7 years after 7 days after that, then they get back to the city to work again. During this pandemic, can you imagine last year, 2019, from Jakarta, there are 14 million people going to West Java, East Java, and other part of Java alone. It's in Java alone is 14 million people. So in pandemic situation, if this 14 million people go out from Jakarta to the other part of Java and then get back to Jakarta again, can you imagine how it affect the and how it spread the virus? So in to avoid this, to prevent people from moving going to mudik, then Jakarta Go ID and also the news work together. They spread and they disseminate the number you saw in the bottom. Kawal COVID. Kawal COVID is guide the COVID activities number. At that time, they just release the number. So by reading the number and also impose an heavy sanction, Jakarta prevent million of people from going out and getting back to Jakarta, thus preventing the spread of the virus. So, like in here, it shows that the theory that the open data can affect the traffic behavior, it's validated. So with this experience, Jakarta are more confident that we with using open data, sharing data, we can achieve the common goals. Next, please. Now the transport, it's closely related to economic. In recent years, Jakarta and also Indonesia find out that one way to share important data is to show one source of information. For the last 10 years, there are a lot of maps, a lot of interpretation of city planning and area rural planning, which lead to unmanaged construction, road construction, building constructions. So at that, then Jakarta say based on Republic also initiative with the Indonesian Geospatial, Jakarta have the open data initiative and also the one map, Jakarta one map, is Jakarta Satu one map. The goal is to guide the property industry compliance to like just build on whatever already mandated or the market area according to that regulation, not and try to the max to comply. And also for the transportation infrastructure and businesses to have more proper and robust financial and business plan toward and servicing an area or a cities. Of course, these economic and transportations are related current issues. So you can see this Jakarta Satu map and also open data and geospatial easily on the website. It's open to all people. But like I said before in the bottom graphic, it's what knowledge level that you have or the business have. The same data can mean and to mean different things to other peoples and other businesses, depend on their level of knowledge. Following that, my last statement that knowledge is one of the common factors. What I suggest is every government, agencies, and cities, I think they should have an open data cycle. This open data cycle is is such a promotion of whatever already going on. You cannot have everything perfect at one time. For example, usually government spend years in creating a policies, but at that time the policy already established and mandated, the situation already changed. That's what happens when you do a survey and then do the regular process of tendering the survey and then the what they call the study and everything. By the time that the data that you analyze are already correct and you analyze it correctly, the time frame already changed, the situation already changed, the disruption already there. Indonesia have a major disruption in rencana in the master plan because in 2014 when the first master plan was established and mandated, we don't even think that there will be a Gojek at that time. The Gojek, it's one of the disruptions, big disruption in Indonesian transportation. So when you already have the policy data, why not just provide the data and information to the public, and then make the people use the data either by the public or the businesses, because the businesses is one of the catalysts in and effective use of any data and information, and then you can collect the data again and then analyze it in this short circle. I put it in the background. So this is what my suggestion for this webinar, and thank you for having my presentation.
We would like to also introduce, of course, the last but not the least, we will hear from Singapore, and with us today is Mr. Yojin Zhou, and then he's a deputy director of the Bus Financing, Investment and Governance and International Relations at the Land Transport Authority of Singapore, where he currently oversees issues relating to financials of the public bus industry in Singapore. He represents also LTA in Singapore internationally on all matters relating to land transport. So he will share with us about the LTA data mall. And in the course of his work and research, Yojin applies a diverse range of data analytics and visualization tools on large swaths of demographic and public transport data. So that includes open source from open source data platforms like the LTE Data Mall and geospatial data also from the Singapore Land Authority. So, Yojin, as we load your presentation, the mic is yours.
Dear colleagues and delegates, from the third webinar in the Open Data in Urban Mobility Planning and Management webinar series under the Summer Project, a very good afternoon to you. I am Toyu Jin from the Land Transport Authority, or LTA of Singapore, and I am very privileged to have the opportunity today to share with you on Singapore's experience in driving open data provision through the LTA Data Mall, Singapore's one-stop land transport open data platform. The Land Master Plan 2040, or LTMP 2040, is Singapore's land transport blueprint and was published in June 2019. It envisages a land transport system that is convenient, well-connected, and fast, and which is characterized by a commuter experience that is both gracious and inclusive, and contributes to better health and safer journeys for all. This vision is captured through the three themes of the LTMP 2040. Firstly, 20-minute towns and a 45-minute city. Secondly, transport for all. And thirdly, healthy lives, safer journeys. A key enabler of the LTMP 2040 is the timely provision of data and information to meet the diverse needs of various stakeholders and users within the land transport ecosystem. The majority of these are commuters, which range from expert users who have fanatically familiarized themselves with the entire public transport network. I personally belong to this group. Routine users who use public transport for their daily commute, to occasional and newbie public transport users such as tourists. We also need to cater to pavement users, such as drivers of private motor vehicles, motorcyclists, cyclists, and pedestrians. And among these, we need to pay particular attention to users with special needs, such as the physically handicapped and visually or hearing impaired, the elderly, parents with young children, and young children. We are guided by three principles in the provision of transport information. Firstly, information must be timely, which means that users must have access to real-time information on the move, anytime and anywhere. Secondly, information must be comprehensive and integrated into common systems and platforms. Thirdly, information must be reliable, relevant, and simple to comprehend for users. In accordance with the above principles, we have made our real-time transport information available through four main touchpoints: LTA's very own mobile application, mytransport.sg, traffic news and on social media, radio broadcasts of live traffic news, and on-site traffic advisory and parking information. These four touchpoints share one thing in common. That is that they all pull their data from the same data source, the LTA Data Mall, Singapore's one-stop land transport open data platform. We launched the LTA Data Mall in 2011 and revamped it in 2018. The LTA Data Mall publishes a wide variety of land transport related data sets, both static and real-time, for enterprises, application developers, researchers, and the public, and makes this data available for free. By doing so, it promotes collaboration with innovative land transport solutions across both the public and private sectors. Today, The LTA data mall has some 9,000 subscribers and sees some 800 million API requests per month. The LTA data mall has facilitated the development of a wide variety of some 54 mobile applications, mostly by third-party developers, which use the open data in the LTA data mall to provide information and services to their users. These include useful transport-related services from bus arrival times, taxi booking services, to information relating to live traffic conditions and parking availability around the central business district. The development of the LTA data mall required extensive collaboration across both the public and private sectors, as not all the data is owned by the LTA, and also because there was a need to develop new systems and technologies to capture information that was not already being tracked. For example, as part of our parking guidance system, or PGS, we provide real-time information on parking availability in commercial developments and shopping malls in the central business district and key regional nodes to help motorists make informed decisions about where they can park. This helps to avoid the unnecessary circulation of vehicles in their attempt to find a parking slot, which contributes to reduced traffic congestion, reduced vehicular pollution, and time savings for motorists. However, LTA does not own the parking availability data in commercial developments, which is proprietary information to the building developers or owners. Hence, LTA had to work with these private developers to pipe all this information using common data protocols from the systems to the LTA data mall. Even then, as this was done on a voluntary basis, there are several private developments that have not signed on to this initiative, although there is sufficient critical mass of participants to allow the PGS to be effective in meeting its objective. As a separate example, during the development of the LTA data mall, information about traffic speeds along expressways and major arterial roads were not being collected. While this information could possibly be collected by the installation of surveillance and monitoring systems along highways and roads, such a solution would have been very costly to implement. Instead, LTA worked with our taxi companies to tap on the global positioning systems that were already installed on taxis and use the GPS information from these taxis to derive the traffic speeds along these roads. Today, we call this system Traffic Scan, and together with PGS, it has become an integral part of our suite of intelligent transport systems solutions. The LTA data mall features both static and dynamic datasets. The static datasets includes both infrastructure-related information and information relating to historical data and trends. Some examples of infrastructure-related information are the location of road traffic infrastructure such as lampposts, as well as the parking fees charged at various public car parks. Such information tends to remain invariant over long periods of time, although our databases will be updated as and when a change occurs. As for information relating to historical data and trends, one example is passenger volume at bus stops, which would potentially help advertisers in deciding which bus stops to focus on in their advertising campaigns to maximize their advertising exposure. On the other hand, our dynamic or real-time datasets, while much fewer in number, have proven to be a lot more popular with application developers. These are also the datasets that are accessed much more frequently by the public. For example, while I may be familiar with the possible driving routes that I could take to get to my office and do not have to consistently look this up, I will not know the actual traffic conditions each time I need to make a trip to the office. Hence, checking on traffic information before every trip could save me the headache from being stuck in a traffic jam. It is therefore unsurprising that the bulk of the API requests received by the LTA data mall are for our real-time datasets. For my last two slides, I would like to share some examples on the cradle-to-grave processes of making real-time open data available through the LTA data mall. My first example will focus on bus arrival times, which is the single most popular dataset being requested on the LTA data mall, likely because public transport forms 2/3 of the mode share across all peak hour journeys from data as at 20. At the data collection stage, we work with our public transport operators, or PDOs, to obtain information on their bus schedules bus dispatch, and bus routing in advance. We then combine this with real-time location data of the buses, which is sent via data transmitters installed on the buses to our backend system for data processing, where our bus ETA system applies predictive analytics to forecast the bus ETA at various stopping points along the bus route. The outputs are then disseminated to the LTA data mall, where subscribers can easily pull the information and integrate it into their mobile application. Before the LTA data mall, commuters had to constantly be on the lookout for whether their buses were arriving. With the provision of bus arrival information, commuters could either time their trips to minimize waiting time at bus stops, head off nearby to do something else while waiting for their bus, or work safely on their mobile devices without the fear of missing their bus. With this provision of data, public transport journeys have become a lot more pleasant, comfortable, and convenient. My second example will focus on real-time traffic data, which is the second most popular data set on the LTA data mall. On top of traffic scan and PGs that had already been discussed earlier, we also have several other data collection mechanisms, such as our expressway monitoring and advisory system, artificial intelligence-enabled video cameras to quickly identify traffic incidents along expressways and major arterial roads, junction eyes and webcams to perform traffic surveillance at key traffic junctions, as well as our green link determining system, which uses a wire sensor at traffic junctions to determine the traffic volume in each direction. The data from these various sensors and video cameras are sent to our Intelligent Transport System Center, where data fusion techniques are applied to process the data into outputs that are also disseminated through the LTA data mall. With this, I have come to the end of my presentation, and I look forward to engaging with you on any questions that you may have during the question and answer session later. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
The summer team would like to thank you for watching the Open Data webinar session. We had 4 sessions in total, introducing open data, discussing open data best practice around the world, and specifically in ASEAN, and also a session on how to make open data work. Throughout the month of November, we brought together a wide range of industry experts. Please see the other webinar sessions online. Thank you very much.